So far, we have been discussing a lot of theory, mostly on a sales pitch. We have not done any practical. So in this case, what we are going to do is we are going to give life to one of those neural networks. We are going to download a model, which is nothing but neural network, weights and bias, and we're gonna run it locally and do an inference using a tool called LM Studio. Without further ado, let's get into the topic. So before we get into the demo, what we can do is we can go through some jargons. So what we are going to discuss is first some jargons and getting it out of our way. So the first jargon is model. So this is one of the main thing we hear when we discuss about AI. When we say model, we normally means the brain of the AI. So it contains all the neural networks and the algorithms used to create that neural network, the training data used to create the network, pretty much everything which contains and used to create this particular brain of the AI. The performance of the AI and what the AI does mainly depends on what the model is. These days, models are nothing but a couple of files. At the end of the day, we will see shortly those files, which contains the parameters. That brings us to the next item, parameters. So you will see a lot of AI strength is defined in terms of parameters. 70 billion, 128 billion. Recently, it is very popular in Gen AI space to define a model with its parameters. Parameters are nothing but the weights and bias. We have seen the weights and bias. So we have different neurons and they are connected through weights, and there is bias going to the neurons. These are nothing but the numbers which creates the intelligence for the AI. Basically, it is directly proportional to the number of neurons, if you know the connection between neurons and the weights and bias. So if a model has 1 billion parameters, it means that it has 1 billion tunable weights and bias and knobs to tweak, to change its learning and intellectual ability within the neural network. Higher the number of parameters doesn't always translate to higher intelligence, but there is a relationship. That comes to other terms like overfitting and things like that, which we are not planning to discuss here. The next item I would like to discuss is input. So input is the data which we are giving to the AI, and the output is also called inference or predictions. Inference or prediction. Say for example, we are giving an input text to an AI and it is predicting the output. We'll see that shortly. So these are the terms we normally use. There will be more terms coming up in the training. As and when it comes, I'll explain each of them, but for the time being, this is good for us to go. There are so many other terms: conventional neural network, feed forward, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, hybrid, all different terminologies. Some of them are not relevant to us. Now, before we get into the demo, let's see what's the demo we are going to see. So what we are going to do is we are going to download something called model, which is nothing but the weights and bias of a neural network from Hugging Face. Hugging Face is like the GitHub, if you know what GitHub is. It is like a storage for models. So you can post your own models into Hugging Face. It's like a GitHub for models. So we are going to download a model from Hugging Face and we are going to run that locally. It is a Gen AI model. In fact, we have multiple models in Hugging Face. We'll see some of the Gen AI models and we'll chat with those models after loading that model using a tool called LM Studio. So we have the Hugging Face. If you want, you can search for Hugging Face. It is like a website or repository or public interface to store models. So the model is within the Hugging Face. We are going to download that model, where we are going to download to our machine here using LM Studio. So LM Studio is a very nice tool recently came up. This is a very simple demo, but there is one catch. To do this demo by yourself, you need a proper graphics card. So LM Studio will download the model and load it into my graphics card, which is GPU. GPU has VRAM within. So VRAM. This is a very expensive piece of equipment. Normally, not a lot of laptops doesn't even have big GPUs. I'm using a GPU called RTX 4090. Is a GPU from NVIDIA. You should be able to do some of the other models with a lesser graphics card, but this graphics card has 24 GB of VRAM. So this demo you don't have to do on your own or not very related to the training. I just wanted to show you some real world example of how AI works and how all these things works behind the scenes. So in my case, the LM Studio, which is a very nice piece of software. I'm liking LM Studio. Only recently I have started using LM Studio. Otherwise I was using something called Olama. Still very good software, Olama as well. If you're in Linux, LM Studio is very good as well. So I'll be using LM Studio to download the model from Hugging Face and load it to the GPU, and I'm going to do inputs and infer some items from the model. So what happens if you don't have a graphics card and try to do this demo? It'll be very, very slow. It'll take a lot of time without a graphics card, especially if you have a model which is bigger than the graphics RAM or the VRAM of the graphics card. For example, if I'm going to use a model higher than 24 GB, say for example 30 or 40 GB, the inference is very slow. So being said that, let me go ahead and download LM Studio. Download LM Studio. So this is the website of LM Studio. It's a kind of a reasonably came up probably 1 year or something, but really stable and good from my experience. So I'm going to download the Windows version of it. So it is pretty big. I think it has all the dependencies baked into it, which is why it is so good. If you're going to learn some new technologies like generative AI, I really recommend LM Studio. But the catch is, again, like I mentioned, you need to have a graphics card, which is very expensive. In this laptop, I'm having two graphics cards. One is an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050, and I have a Intel Iris Xe graphics card. This is 4 GB of RAM. I don't think this is enough for this models to run. 4 GB is very less. It will be very slow. So I'll be using a different system to run this demo. But right now, all I'm showing you is how to download and install LM Studio. If you're planning to learn AI and if you're serious about AI, I really recommend you invest in a graphics card. So we have the LM Studio downloaded right here. So all I'm going to do is just double click. So it has started the installation and everything has come up. My resolution is a little low. That's why it is not able to show all the things. What we can do is we can do Control minus so that the font size will be little less. I hope you can read it. So this is the user interface of LM Studio where you can download different models. So these are different models, nothing but files. We'll see shortly these files. If you click on download, it'll start downloading. The total size of the model is 4.92 GB, the file size. Within the VRAM, it can take more space, depends on the context and things like that. Again, context is something which I have not discussed. It is another jargon we don't have to worry much about, but this is the kind of the minimum space you need to have in the VRAM. So as I said, you can see different models here. You can download and start loading those models, which is what we are going to do. Now, it has a lot of other interfaces, pretty much self-explanatory. So it gives you the estimated VRAM capacity and RAM capacity and things like that. So this is the chat interface we will be using to chat with the model. For example, if you have a model downloader, you can load that model here and start chatting with it. So all Gen AI models, now the models are supported in LM Studio. So language model, large language models. So this is one thing we will be looking at, hosting the model as a REST interface. We will see that in the next session when we discuss about REST APIs. That's how we are going to access all the cloud models using REST APIs. That's another thing we need to get our head around. So this is where the downloaded models are present. So right now I'm in a slightly different system which has a graphics card, and I have downloaded a couple of models. So the graphics card which I'm having is NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 90 in this particular machine. This is not the laptop you're seeing the screen of. It's a different physical desktop, pretty big desktop sitting next to me. So if you want to look at the configuration, it has a Ryzen 7 CPU and 64 GB RAM. Doesn't really matter 64 GB RAM unless we are planning to use the RAM instead of VRAM. Then things will be very slow. What matters here is the dedicated GPU memory usage. Available is 24 GB. That is because of this particular card. So the model we are going to use is one of the models which I have already downloaded, because downloading the model takes a lot of time, but some of the models available are here. There's a lot of things we can do with the models, like local server we will see, and chat. So these are some of the models available. Some of the models are pretty big, doesn't fit for us. We need to select something small. I have Llama 3 and Phi 3 downloaded. So Phi 3 is a model from Microsoft, language model. So this is the model we are talking about. So you can see different models here when we search. So I'm in the search tab of LM Studio. I have searched for Phi 3. I'm getting all the different Phi 3 models. For example, you can download Phi 3 and fine tune and upload it here with your name. People have done that. That's why there is a lot of different Phi 3. You can quantize, fine tune, all those kind of different things we can do. Again, not getting into much details there. So these are the models which I have downloaded already. Like I said, 2 different versions of Phi 3 and Llama 3. If you want to search more about these models, you can do. So I'm going to load one of this model. Right now the model is getting loaded into my VRAM. So I'm selecting complete GPU offload, which means everything going to be in GPU. So I'm expecting some good performance. So these are language models. We can simply chat using this chat interface we are seeing. So you can see here the RAM is completely used, almost 23.5. Looks like I'm slightly overrunning. If that is the case, I may have to reduce the context of the model. The context size increases the memory usage of the model. Anyway, I'm going to ask it a couple of questions to see how is the performance. It may not be that great because the model looks to be a little big for the RAM, but we will see. So one thing we need to make sure that is nothing is connected to internet. So tell me a poem about sunset. So this is completely local, nothing running or taking from the internet. As you can see here, while it is generating the text, the GPU has gone high, very high. GPU usage is 100%. Memory is pretty high as well, but maybe used by other applications. But as you can see, LM Studio is using very high memory. It is not using much CPU. It is using GPU instead of CPU. It is doing matrix multiplication as of now, as we speak. So it has created the text. It is creating the text. So it has written a long poem. If you want, you can pause the video and read about it, but it all looks neat and clean to me. And just keep writing it. You can reduce the amount of response and things like that if you want, based on the things and configurations you're giving. Twilight Embrace. It is using all big words. If you want, you can read, but at the end of the day, it has given a sensible answer. So that is Phi 3 Mini 128K Instruct. That's the name of the model. If you want to try it yourself, just like a ChatGPT, probably a little less intelligent. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to disconnect the internet just to make sure that there is no connection whatsoever, because it's generating too good text. I want to make sure that everything is not connected. My internet is still there, so let me completely disconnect the network. So I'm going to disable my NIC card. Now everything is gone, nothing is working, no internet. We'll go back to LM Studio and try something else. So this time I'm asking a very advanced question. Could you tell me what is a black hole is? Let's see the usage of the GPU. So GPU is being used pretty heavy. GPU is 100% right now. The VRAM is fully used because the model is pretty big. The memory remains constant. So it is generating the answer. This is one area of science which I know kind of the answer. It is giving correct answer. As of now, looks correct to me. I have not read the complete answer. We can always limit the amount of text it generates with additional settings in the LM Studio. So looks the answer is pretty accurate, especially for a system which is disconnected to internet. This is not coming from internet, it is coming from within the model. So the knowledge the model is having. Excellent. Let's ask a very specific question to see how extensive its knowledge. So which is the most famous Malayalam movie you know about? So that's the question I have asked. It's a very tough question in terms of knowledge because it's a very niche language. Unless it has GBs and TBs of data, it'll be difficult to answer this question because it's a very niche question. It is giving me a very, very specific answer. Very interesting. I myself have to review this answer. I have not heard about this particular movie. I don't know, looks correct, but even a guy who is well versed in this particular topic, still I'm not able to verify the correctness of this particular answer, but it looks correct to me. But I don't know if there is a movie like that and this storyline is correct. So I'll verify that later, but this is how in general model works, and this is all I wanted to show you. In the later session, we will have a look at the server, the REST API server, by which we can connect to this AI from outside and call APIs, which is what we are going to do rest of this training in different models. We will not be hosting the model like this. This is just I'm showing within my laptop. Otherwise, we'll be using models from other cloud providers like Azure, AWS, GCP, etc. Even OpenAI for the matter. So before we leave, I wanted to show you one last thing. I wanted to show you where this models has downloaded, what are the files it's having, where is the brain, where that information was coming from, what really happened behind the scene. So these are the downloaded models, and it is clearly saying it is there in this path right here, G/cache. That's a path I have given. It's a 4 TB drive I'm having here specifically for downloading different artificial intelligence models, AI models from Hugging Face. So what we are going to do is we are going to look into this folder and going to see what is inside that folder. To make things easier, I have cleaned up and I have only 3 models right now in that particular folder. And we are going to have a look into that folder and see these models by ourselves. So this is that folder. Inside the folder, we have this one big file right here. It's a 14 GB file, as you can see here. The size of the file is 14 GB, almost 15 GB. So this was a model which we used just now to answer those questions. So what is inside this 14 GB big file? What is inside that? That is where those parameters coming in, the weights and bias, basically numbers. Floating point numbers. That's what this thing contains. How a neuron connects to another neuron. That's what the information within this 14 GB. And what happens when we load the model? Almost this entire data is getting loaded into the GPU or VRAM of the computer. And then on, we are giving different inputs like we did, and the model is creating inferences or output by doing matrix multiplication using the GPU. So feel free to do this demo even if you don't have a graphics card, because only thing is that it'll be dead slow without a graphics card. Keep it running, let it take a day or two, get the response. At least you will get to know the workflow of this whole thing. Take a small model, smallest possible model, load it using LM Studio, get a feel of it, start the server like we are going to do in the next session. Try the demo. It may be very slow, it may not be that fast, but try to download LM Studio and play around it. So in this lesson, we have seen how we can download a model which is a pre-trained model and run it locally and do inference or use it. Inference is nothing but using the model. We are giving data and expecting some output. That's what we have seen. Now let's get into REST APIs in the next lesson.